All right, so I'm going to ask you to do me a favor tonight. I've got a word tonight that that if we apply this tonight, it will 100% make your life better. If you do not apply it, it will 100% do nothing, okay? So what I don't want is for anybody to miss this because they're distracted. So if you could do me a favor, if we could just cancel the white noise of our week long enough, and maybe we could pray internal prayer. Holy Spirit, would you give me the grace to be fully present? And the courage to say my next yes. Amen. I want to talk to you tonight about decision making. I get the top 3 questions I get asked in the world. How do I know God's will? What's the purpose of God? This kind of thing. And the fallacy with the question is that purpose and will are somehow some fixed point. Paul said it this way: give thanks, rejoice, and pray, for this is the will of God. So whatever you're doing, as long as you're giving thanks, rejoicing, and praying, you're in the middle of God's will for you. Purpose is actually a function of 3 things. It's presence, people, and impact. And if you have any one of those 3 things removed, it's not wrong, it's just less meaningful. Like if you have a group of people making a big difference in the world, that's not wrong, but if that group of people isn't grounded in God's presence, it's just less meaningful. If you have a group of people grounded in God's presence, like they're showing up every night for 4 hours to some unnecessarily long church service, and they're grounding themselves in God's presence, that's not wrong either. But if God touching a group of people isn't somehow translating into them impacting their world, it's not wrong. It's just less meaningful. Like, what's the will of God for me? The will of God for you is to give thanks, rejoice, and pray. Should I be an engineer or a nurse? Well, do you like putting people back together, or do you like putting bridges together? Pick one and then give thanks, rejoice, and pray, right? Should I marry this person or that person? Well, pick one. Pick the one you like, and pick one and then give thanks, rejoice, and pray. And then depending on the quality of your choice will determine how much you rejoice and how much you pray. Right? So a lot of times it comes down to decisions. And in charismatic circles, we tend to just blame Satan far too much for stuff. We absolve ourselves of our responsibility because, well, the enemy is attacking me. And maybe. But in general, the enemy can just take a day off because we're doing dumb stuff. Wow. Right? Wow. I want to talk to you about that. Like the absolute worst filter for decision making, the worst filter is psychopath. Right? So if you're a psychopath, that means you actually take pleasure in your decisions causing harm to others. Now, I'm assuming at Favor Church on a Sunday afternoon that nobody here is a psychopath, right? But if you are, I would urge you to make the next choice, right? The next choice is sociopath. It's better than psychopath, but sociopath is not intending to harm, but it doesn't care if it harms. Then the next step after that is apathy. So you can hear the word P-A-T-H, path. Like psychopath, sociopath, apathy. Apathy means whatever will be, will be. It just doesn't matter. I'm not going to live intentionally. Then the next step after that is right or wrong. And that's where I'm going to stop for a second. I'm going to assume that most of us, at least on the surface, consider, is this decision right or is this decision wrong? And that's better than being a psychopath, but it's still a horrible filter for decision making if it's your only filter for decision making. You know this because it's the first lie told in the Bible, and evidently it was told by a talking snake. Look, when the Bible writers say a talking snake told a lie, that's the Bible writer's way of saying it's a big lie. And the lie was, you can master life by mastering good and evil perfectly. No, you cannot. Because there's a lot of things, there's a couple reasons. One is neuroscience. If you make 100 decisions in a day or a week and you get 99 of them right, you're going to obsess about the one you didn't get right. So that's one. Number 2, there's a lot of things that aren't wrong. They're just not wise. There's a lot of things that are just dumb. They're not wrong, they're just dumb. Right? And if we only consider what is right and what is wrong, we can justify doing not wrong things, but they're dumb things. Or they're not useful things, or they're unwise things. A much better question would be, does this decision lead my life to clarity or confusion? To order or disorder? To new creation or chaos? Those are much better and much more profound questions than, is this right or is this wrong? Like, let me give you an example. Like, I'm American and Australian. I'm a dual citizen, so I'm one of you as well. And in America, Americans don't We don't have this thing around travel. Largely, and that's a bad thing, largely because Americans think they're the center of the universe anyway, right? But Australians, there's something in their DNA, like they want to travel. So I was talking to a 19-year-old the other day, and his parents were a little concerned about him, like he isn't showing any ambition and da-da-da-da-da, and but he loves me. So Shane, would you talk to him? We're just worried about his ambition and his vision for his life and da-da-da. So I got around him a bit, and finally I said, man, what's your plan? And he, with a straight face, he said, you know what I'm thinking about doing? I'm thinking about taking a year off to walk around Europe to find myself. Now look, if you're here tonight and you're over 40 years old, could you imagine telling your father that you were going to take a year off to find yourself? My dad would have been like, oh, look, there you are. I have found you. Get a job. Right? And he started saying dumb stuff, not wrong stuff, just dumb stuff. Like, I figured out a way to do it for 10 grand. No, you can't. I've worked in Europe. You can't live in Europe for a year for 10 grand. That's just not true. But let's say it was. Is that still the best use of $10,000? I don't think so. If you invest $10,000 at 19 years old in an S&P 500 index fund, by 65 it's going to be worth over $600,000. Like, I hope you like the trip. So in other words, the it's not wrong thing can sabotage the much heavier thing. And I want to talk to you about that. I want to give you one image tonight that is, if we apply this, will change our life for the better. And it's an image that's found early in the Bible narrative. And it's an image that's found in Genesis 25. And it's found in a story between two brothers that are having conflict over a bowl of stew. And this is how that goes. If you could bring that slide up for me. This is Genesis 25, 27. And the boys grew up, and Esau became a skillful hunter, a man of the open country, while Jacob was a quiet man staying amongst the tents. Isaac, who had a taste for wild game, loved Esau, but Rebekah loved Jacob. So you got this dysfunctional family right off the bat, one parent loving one more than the other. Once when Jacob was cooking some stew, Esau came in from the open country famished. And he said to Jacob, quick, let me have some of that red stew. I'm famished. Parentheses, that is why he is called Edom to this day. Now that's a Jewish joke. You can't see it in English. That's why nobody laughed. But if we were Hebrew speakers, that is a Hebrew joke. I'll explain it in a second. Jacob replied, first sell me your birthright. Look, I'm about to die, Esau said, which I think we could all agree is a bit of an exaggeration. He walked in. He's not about to die. What good is the birthright to me? Now, I see some of you taking notes, and if you're going to try to take notes, that's the critical question. What good is my birthright to me? This is why in all rabbinical literature and in the Bible, Esau is the character held up as the most godless human being in the entire Bible. And that is in your face confrontation, because the Bible's full of nefarious characters. Ahab, Ammon, who introduced child sacrifice, Manasseh, who made it national law, Jezebel, my goodness, the entire charismatic communion is at a field name on her name forever. It's like, we don't just disagree with you. You have a spirit of Jezebel, right? It's like, right? It's like, no, when the Bible talks of a godless person, or when in rabbinical literature, when they talk of somebody that's godless, it's always Esau. And it's because of that question, what good is the birthright to me? But Jacob said, swear to me first. So he swore an oath to him, selling his birthright to Jacob. Keep going. Then Jacob gave Esau some bread and lentil stew, and he ate and he drank, and he got up and left. So Esau despised his birthright. The word despise there is where we get the word godless from. It also is where we get the word profane from. It means to treat something that's sacred as if it's common. In this story, Esau considered the infinite possibilities of a 24-hour gift of God's breath and everything he could be in God as not as valuable as one bowl of stew. And that becomes problematic. Here's my image for tonight. Instead of only considering what's right and wrong, what if we considered what is chaotic or clear? What leads me to confusion or clarity? What leads me to order or disorder? What leads me to new creation or chaos? But I could summarize all that in one image. Here's the question I want us to ask for the rest of our life, if we can. And that is this. Does this decision I'm fixing to make, does it belong to the birthright or to the bowl? Is this an intentional pursuit of everything I can be in God, or is this me acquiescing to my next urge? Now, I've been talking for 7 minutes, and so social science tells me that half this room are narrative learners, and if you're a narrative learner, you're loving this. The other half are linear learners, and if you're a linear learner, you're starting to get lost. So if you're a linear learner, I did this for you. Next slide. Here's what you have. You have a dysfunctional family. Yeah, you have now, if your name is Jacob today, I want to be clear, that is an awesome name. If your mother named you Jacob, that is amazing in English. But in Hebrew, you would never name your child Jacob. It means liar. So God graciously changes his name to Israel later. You have Esau. He's the dad's favorite, right? And Esau comes in from the open country famish. And in English, he says, quick, get me some red stew. The reason is the context is Jacob's cooking stew. And so a translator's job is not to be exact, it's not to be literal, it's to make it readable. And so in English it says, give me some red stew, I'm famished. But in Hebrew, it is much more caveman. He comes in and says, ha-adam, ha-adam. Ha-adam, ha-adam. Ha, the, Adam, red. The red. Ha-adam, ha-adam. Ooh. Ooh, ha-adam, ha-adam. The red. Now, a quick 10 seconds for the Bible nerds. In Hebrew, there are no adverbs. So you can't say, I really, really want something. You would just repeat it. So if you say peace, you would say shalom. If you'd say really big peace, you'd go shalom, shalom. And if you say a big peace, you go shalom, 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 right? So Esau comes in famished and he goes, ha-adam, 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 ooh, ha-adam, ha-adam. The red. I really, really, really want the red. Now, because the context is stew, the translators say red stew, but the word stew's not there. It's just ha-adam, 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 ha-adam. Maybe you could hear it this way. How dumb, how dumb. How dumb, how dumb, ha-adam, ha-adam. Ha-adam, 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 ha-adam. How dumb, how dumb, how dumb. And so he trades his birthright for one bowl of ha-adam, ha-adam. So they change his name to, next slide, Edom. That's the Jewish joke. Edom means red man. So he does something so profoundly stupid that they give him a nickname that sticks. Have you ever, did you ever know somebody when you were young? They did something so stupid that their friends gave them a nickname to take the Mickey out of and to remind them? That's it. That's what's going on here. Mine when I was a kid was Niblet. I'll let y'all figure that one out. Essentially, hey, are you that dipstick that traded everything he could be for one urge of ha-adam, ha-adam? How'd that work out for you, Edom? Are you the guy that traded everything he could be for one bowl of red stuff, that red stuff? How'd that work out, red man? What's going on, red? Hey, aren't you that guy that traded everything he could be for some red? How'd that go, Edom? It says he despised his birthright. That means to treat something sacred as if it's common, to be godless, to remove the consciousness of God from something. There's one more thing going on, and that's just a quick Bible nerd thing. In Hebrew, the word iniquity is the word Avon, like the makeup company, Avon. And every Hebrew letter is a picture, so every Hebrew word's a comic strip. So Avon is an eyeball, a hook, and then fish multiplying. So when an ancient Hebrew person read the word iniquity, they read whatever your eye hooks to multiplies. In other words, whatever gets your attention gets more important than it actually is. Or as your grandmother might have said, don't make a mountain out of a molehill. We've all been there. Where have you ever lost something that cost $100 and then before you knew it, it was taking $1,000 of headspace? It's that. Or when your attention gets on something and it becomes a bigger deal than it actually is. That's what happened in this story. Esau comes in. Ha-adam, ha-adam. Give me the red stuff, that red stuff. Ha-adam, ha-adam. I really, and his eye hooked to what was in the bowl to the point where he lost sight of his entire birthright. And here's what's so confronting about this story. It's over 3,000 years old, and it's still alive in us. We look at this, and it has life. Why? Because there's nothing wrong in the story. Is it wrong to trade your birthright for a bowl? No. It's just really, really dumb. It's very, very godless. It's very, very profane. It's very, very despising. It's your birthright. You should do what you want with it. That's the libertarian view. It's like, wait a minute, it's my birthright. I should do what I want to with it. But some things aren't wrong. They're just really, really stupid. And here's the thing, like for us, there's not a modern day equivalent to the word birthright. Our closest thing is inheritance. But birthright was bigger than that. Next slide. Oh yeah, here we go. Good, you're ahead of me now. The birthright was carrying the family name for survival. It was imagery for everything your family stood for. There was no court records there was no register of deeds. Somebody had to be in charge of who owns what. It entitled a person to twice the inheritance. Where Pentecostals tickle me, they're like, we want a double portion. No one wanted a double portion. A double portion was a payment for all the extra responsibilities. Like, for instance, if I was a firstborn son, I had to be responsible for all the sins of my brothers and sisters. That's one. Two, I had to pay restitution for things they hurt. Three, this was really harrowing. If my brother died, I had to marry all of his wives. That was called the kinsman redeemer law. Like that, by the way, that was meant to protect women so they didn't have to go into prostitution to feed themselves. Like this was a good thing back then. But can you imagine if I have 8 brothers and through a series of unfortunate events, they all die. And on average, they have 4 wives apiece. I just inherited 32 women and all their children. Like, can you see where the double portion never made it to my pocket? It was at Target and Woolworths and Kohl's and it was essentially, look, this is not a lesson tonight on firstborns and secondborns and justice and mercy, although that's a good message we could do. For tonight, I just want you to think about it this way. The word birthright was essentially a summary statement of everything you could be. It was a summary, like, so the word birthright was like, it was like encapsulating, this is everything, all my full potential. Now, if you got lost at any of that, spend about 11 minutes, come back right now. I'm going to summarize the entire first 11 minutes on one slide. And you might be thinking, you could have started with that. But here we go. Next slide. Esau traded everything he could be for one momentary urge. And it wasn't wrong. It was just making the heavier thing pay the price at the altar of the lighter thing. And here's the thing, right? If you got lost at any of that right now, because here's the whole point. One day, I hope you'll all be 90. I don't want to hope you live too much past 90, because I think if you get far past 90, it's like, oof, right? But let's just say we're 89. And here's what will happen at 89. We'll all look back at the story of our life, and the story of our life will be one of 2 narratives. Narrative number 1, I woke up every day pursuing the infinite possibilities I could be in God. I took seriously the gift of God's breath, and the posture of my heart was pursuing everything I could be in God. And along the way, I made mistakes with zeros attached, because people in action make more mistakes than people sitting on their butt. But it wasn't about mistakes. It was my heart was posturing toward everything I could be in God. That's an incredible narrative. The second narrative would be, you know what? I look back on my life and thank God that his faithfulness is never compromised by my lack of it. And he's forgiving and he's loving and he's kind, and he engaged my broken mess despite my ability to mess things up. And I am sitting here today with full faith in Jesus' faithfulness. And because of that, my eternal life is secure. Thank God. But unfortunately, the narrative of my life was living from one urge to the next urge, to the next urge, to the next urge, to the next urge. I regularly traded birthrights for bowls. And it overpromises and underdelivers. And that's my thing, is without even making right or wrong an issue, I'm going to assume everybody here wants to do what's right. It's past that. It's, are we doing not wrong things that trade heavier matters for lighter matters? Is the narrative of my life urge-based, are destiny based. And we tend to read the Bible and we read ourselves in as the good guys. Like when we read Bible stories, we're always the crucified person. We're never the crucifiers, right? We're never the Jonah story. We're never the Jonah narrative. We're never that. And when it's easy to read this story and go, what an idiot. Who would trade something permanent for something temporary? Who would do that? Then we take a second, we go, wait a minute. And this isn't just common to them. This is why this story is alive. It's common to the whole Bible narrative because it's common to us. So there's this guy named Moses. And God says, I have a huge birthright for you, Moses. I want you to free a bunch of people out of slavery. That's a massive destiny. And Moses resisted at first. Here's what he says, next slide. Moses said to the Lord, oh Lord, I've never been eloquent, neither in the past or since you've spoken to your servant. I'm slow of speech and of tongue. Keep going. And the Lord said to him, well, who gave man his mouth and who made him deaf or mute? Who gives him sight or makes him blind? Is it not I, the Lord? Now go, I'll help you speak. In other words, Moses, I have this huge birthright for you. And his whole thing was, next slide, I don't have the skill. Like your best resistance to that birthright was, I have a C in public speaking. And for us to go, well, I would never do that. How arrogant is that? Are we past Moses? Later, there's a guy named Gideon. And Gideon, this group of people are back in slaves. And God says, I got a huge birthright for you, Gideon. I want you to rescue all these slaves out of the hand of Midian. And Gideon resisted. Here's what he says. Next slide. The Lord turned to him and said, go in the strength you have and save Israel out of Midian's hand. Am I not sending you? Keep going. But Lord, Gideon said, how can I save Israel? My clan is the weakest in Manasseh, and I'm the least of my family. The Lord answered, I'll be with you, and you will strike down all the Midianites together. Next slide. Gideon's whole thing was, I don't have the heritage. Like if you follow Gideon's logic, my tribe is the least of all the tribes. My clan is the least of that. My family is the least of that. And I'm the least of my family. If you follow his logic, he's like, God, I'm the worst person on earth you could choose to do this. You know. Again, I have this huge birthright. And we traded in for a bowl of I don't have the skill. Or have you seen my family? They're kind of rednecks, you know. Later, there's this guy named Jeremiah. And Jeremiah, is his birthright, I want you to be a prophet to the nations. But evidently, I don't know how old he was, but in his own mind, he was too young. And here's Jeremiah's resistance to God's calling. The word of the Lord came to me saying, behold, I formed you in the womb. I knew you before I was born. You were born, I set you apart. I appointed you as a prophet to the nations. Keep going. But, sovereign Lord, I don't know how to speak. I'm only a child. Again, I have this huge birthright for you, and it's some excuse. Next slide, Jeremiah's excuse was, I don't have the maturity. Like, I think at this point in the Bible, God's like, is there anybody that's just not a whiner? Is there anybody that would just give it a go, you know? It's like, come on. I would rather you make mistakes with zeros attached, posturing your life towards the infinite possibilities God has, than just sitting on your butt, thinking of reasons why you can't do it. And again, it's in all of us. Think about yourself. Like it's easy to hear something like this and think, man, I hope Jim's listening to this. Like, Jim, are you listening? He's like, but just for a second, like, let's get the plank out of our own eye. Where have we chosen the bowl over the birthright? Not wrong, just indifferent. Or maybe we let our urge take precedent over the heavier thing. You know what the scariest one is there's this country called Israel. And Israel was chosen by God to be a blessing to every country. And then they didn't do it. And Jesus calls them out. In Matthew 23, here's what he says. Next slide. Oh, Jerusalem, Jerusalem, you who kill the prophets and stone those sent to you. How often I have longed to gather your children together as a hen gathers her chicks under her wings, but you were not willing. Now look, your house is left to you desolate. In other words, next slide, sometimes it's our skill, sometimes it's our maturity, sometimes it's our heritage, but sometimes, and this is the scary one, sometimes we just don't want it. And so I'm asking you to ask yourself, who am I in this story? Have I been held back by my lack of skill? Maybe I need to get some skill. Have I been held back because of insecurity from my family? And maybe we need to sort that out. Have I been held back because, well, can I give it a go? And one of the things, honestly, one of the things where Favor Church thrives in the world is they are not scared to give young people a go. If you're willing to give it a go here, they're willing to let you have a go, as long as you're coachable, or, hey, let's see if we could bring greatness out of that, right? When I went to Manila the first time, I'd never seen more talent on a stage in my life. And they all looked 14 years old. I couldn't believe it. I was like, but I think for us in here, it's, do we want it? When you're 89, will the narrative of your life be, I woke up in general with a posture toward fulfilling everything I could be in God? Or, unfortunately, I let my urges dictate my whole life. And some of those urges were bad, and some of them weren't. It's just, I let the lighter thing take precedent over the heavier thing. There's someone who wrote Hebrews. I don't know who wrote it, but they write something very, very confronting. And I want us to look at this. This is Hebrews 12. See to it that no one is sexually immoral or is godless like Esau. Whoever wrote Hebrews had access to the entire Old Testament. How many people can you think of in the Old Testament that did worse things than Esau? I don't even have to think about it. I can think of 50. Godless like Esau. And here's what's really confronting. Hebrews 12 is right after Hebrews 11. And Hebrews 11 lists a list of names. By faith Abraham, by faith Isaac, by faith Moses, by faith Jephthah, by faith Samson, by faith, I'm not tricking you. By our moral compass, who did worse mistakes, Abraham or Esau? By far Abraham. It says he gave his wife to Pharaoh's harem and greatly profited from Egyptian affluence while she suffered in the harem. If CNN and the internet would have been around by then, what would we say about Abraham? I could make a case that Abraham would never be asked on the biggest Christian conference stages in the world. As a matter of fact, if the YouTube heresy hunter people got a hold of him, they'd be like, he did what? Esau would likely be asked to give his testimony about the detriments of trading your birthright for a bowl. But Esau's the one called godless, not Abraham. And who made worse mistakes? Abraham. Who made worse mistakes? Isaac or Esau? Isaac by far. Who made worse mistakes? Moses or Esau? My goodness, Moses was a premeditated murderer. I looked this way and that and seen no one. I killed the man and hid him in the sand. Problem was the next day the sand shifted. You got this leg sticking up out of the sand. God said, you'll do. I'll have you write the foundation of all scripture. Moses would never be asked on a Christian conference stage in today's climate. And if YouTube got a hold of it, right? Jephthah killed his own daughter. Samson lost a bet and killed 30 people. That ain't good. The Samson story is in the Bible to show us how not to act. It starts out as a rebellion to parents and then escalates into everybody dying. Like if you go back and read the Samson story, it starts out as a joke no one understood. And they didn't understand the joke. And so she told them the joke. And now he owes them 30 pieces of clothes. And instead of saying, you got me, he goes and kills 30 of their relatives and gives them 30 of their clothes. And then they respond by burning her to death with fire. And then he responds a certain way. And then they respond. And then he responds by burning all their fields down with foxes. And then they respond by sending 1,000 men to kill him. And then he responds by picking up the jawbone of a donkey and killing 1,000 of them. And then they respond by tricking him with a woman and putting his eyes out. And then he responds by tricking them into tying him to the pillars of the building. And then he pulls the whole building down. This is not good. It's called escalation. If you're married, you understand this. Have you ever had an argument with your spouse that started out about how to cut a tomato? And before you knew it, it escalated into insulting each other's mothers? It goes something like this. That's not how to cut a tomato. That's how I cut a tomato. That's not how my mom does it. Well, I ain't your mom. Well, I wish you cut a tomato like her. Well, I ain't as fat as her. And now it's on. Here's my point. Abraham, Isaac, Moses, Jephthah, Samson, who made more mistakes? They did. They did. By faith, David. David had 700 women. 700. David was dating the entire town of Bow Desert. And you know, there are Christian traditions that, according to their written bylaws, would never let David preach on their stages, but open the word of God that he wrote, fail to see the hypocrisy in that? Solomon had 1,000 women. 1,000, that's Ipswich. God's like, excuse me, sir. Are you the guy that successfully navigated the affections of 1,000 women? I am. You got to be the smartest guy on earth. You want to write a book on wisdom? My point is that by our moral climate, everybody in Hebrews 11 made worse mistakes than the one guy mentioned in Hebrews 12. Why? I think it's because to the writer of Hebrews, it wasn't about the amount of mistakes. Or as Pastor Ben said in the transition, even if you were the villain in your own story, like even if you were the cause of this disorder, your lack of faithfulness does not compromise God's faithfulness to engage your broken story with you. Absolutely true. But sometimes it's not the amount of mistakes. It was everybody in Hebrews 11 was posturing their heart towards fulfilling something bigger. And along the way, they made mistakes because people who are trying things make more mistakes than people who aren't. The problem with Esau wasn't the amount or the intensity of his mistakes. It was his complacency. It's apathy. And if you're reasonable, you'd be thinking, well, maybe the writer of Hebrews had access to a story we don't know about Esau. What if Esau ordered genocide or something? Maybe. But then the writer of Hebrews references the same story. See to it that no one is godless like Esau, who for a single meal sold his inheritance rights as the oldest son. He's referencing the same story. Yeah. Next slide. Afterwards, as you know, he could bring about no change of mind. He was rejected, even though he could bring about no change of mind because he sought the blessing with tears. In other words, he went to his dad and tried to get his dad to reverse his decision, and it just didn't work. And again, we read this and go, I would never do that. I don't know. If you got lost at any of this, that's been 22 minutes. 24 minutes, something like that. Come back right now. I've summarized the entire talk on one slide. And you might be thinking, you could have started with that. Next slide. Do we despise our birthright? That's the question. Do we live as though there's no higher purpose which profanes our destiny? It's not a matter of making mistakes. It's when we live like nothing else matters more than the next urge. The problem is, next slide, this pattern simply leads us from living from one urge to the next urge, to the next urge, to the next urge, to the next urge. And here's what's so hard to see, but it's critical to the text because it's far apart. Next slide. What seems so great, the red stuff, the ha'adam, it ends up being a cup of beans. It says Jacob gave him lentil stew. That's just little beans. Essentially, here's the whole talk on one slide. Next slide. Esau traded everything he could be for a cup of beans. I think, golly. It's just one more piece of cake. And I know I'm overweight, and my doctor tells me I'm pre-diabetic, and I'm a candidate for heart disease. But I'm a sugar addict. That's just the way it is. That's just who I am. And I know if I eat a bite of cake, I'm going to eat the whole cake. And if you don't know the difference, think through it. And so you open the fridge, and there's the cake. It's grandma's cake, and it's ha'adam, 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 ha'adam. I'll die without that sugar hit. And you give in. Wow. and you eat the cake. Anything wrong with eating cake? No. But when you do that and you know it's a problem, when it's over, it's just beans. By the time the sweetness is off your mouth, you're like, I thought I'd die without that, but it's now in my gut and it's heading towards my butt, and it's just beans. It's just one more beer. And you know if you can have one beer with your friend or if it's going to be 20. And if you don't know the difference, think through it. And you've already started costing yourself respect with your wife and with your children and a bit of your own personal dignity. And you're trying, but you got this thing with that, and you open it up, and there it is, Forex gold or whatever you like, and it goes ha-adam, 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 ha-adam. I'll die without it. And you give in, and you're 20 beers in, and the next day is the worst hangover of your life, and you've lost dignity and respect and honor with the people who matter the most. And you're thinking, I thought I would die without that, but that was just beans. It's just one more shirt. All the shirts I have aren't enough. I still feel like something else would make me feel better. And I go to Carindale Mall and walk through Carindale Mall, and all Carindale Mall is one big ha-adam, 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 ha-adam. And they take the shirts and they put them on models. And the intimation is, if you had this shirt, you would look like her or him. No, you wouldn't. Have you seen your side profile? No. And we give up something, anything wrong with buying a shirt? No. But when we give up something heavy like financial peace over a shirt, and at the end of the day, it's like, it's cost me what? That was just beans. It's just one more piece of gossip. I have to share this. Didn't you see the YouTube thing? Because it does Christianity a real service to point out everybody's flaws. Or this person at the family thing. And I feel like I'm going to die if I don't share it. And as soon as it comes out of the mouth, it's like, boy, I thought I would die without that. It's just beans. It's a couple emotions you can't afford to have. Anger and lust. I have a master's degree in clinical psychology. I can tell you, when anger or lust gets in your system, all the blood leaves your brain. When you're angry, all the blood leaves your brain and goes to the major muscle groups to prepare for a fight. When you're lustful, all the blood leaves your brain and goes to your erogenous zones to prepare for that. And it's a gift from God. You don't want to be in your right mind in that. And if you're in real danger, it's a gift from God. But if it's done outside of proper boundaries, you lose 25% of your workable IQ. Most people can't afford that. Like, think about how many times you had to go back. I didn't mean it. I was just angry. Or how many stupid decisions have we made in a lustful frame of mind? It's like, man, I thought I would die without that. But now that it's over, it's just beans. You know what I did? I made the permanent people in my life, my family, pay for the sins of a temporary person. I came home and I was snippy with my wife, and she's like, are you okay? And I was like, man, it's just this client at work. Hold on. You just made your wife pay for the sins of someone who don't remember your name in 2 years? Beans. It's just beans. It's just one more. There's something that guys have more than girls. We struggle with this more than girls, and that's car fever. Car fever is the irrational need to drive something new while rationalizing it as something more reliable. And so what happens with guys is we start looking online, we get car fever. And the worst place to go if you have car fever is a car dealership. Because there's car salesmen and they're going, ha-adam, 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 ha-adam. I have an idea, sir. Buy something you can't afford with money you don't have to impress people you don't like. Pay 8% interest on something losing 50% of its value. This is going to be awesome. See, they tell me we have a housing affordability problem. Maybe. Or maybe we have a car payment problem. When the average car payment of a 24-year-old man is now $1,159. Are you kidding me? And they're very clever. They put off the car payment 45 days. And by the time the car payment goes around, you're like, I'm paying what? It's going down how fast in value? I thought I would die without this. But now that I got it, it was just beans. Maybe we could say it this way. Next slide. Is the story of your life going to be a pursuit of the birthright or a summation of living from one urge to the next? If we're honest, even when it's not wrong, when the decision belongs to the bowl, it's just beans.